Hello, good evening. Happy 7/7. It's 11:11 here right now. And it seemed suiting to go live now and read Chapter 7 of Real Alchemy, a primer of practical alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett. Chapter 7 is entitled Waterworks. All right, let's dig in. Practical alchemy, as an experimental art and science, provides a means of exploring the works of nature and gaining first-hand knowledge of these operations. The old masters were often called chemical philosophers, and they understood the essential unity of all creation. By exploring materials in the laboratory, they came to an understanding of the more subtle realms preceding the physical manifestation. Aside from the quest for the philosopher's stone, there are many interesting paths to explore, and each one sheds light on another as we learn to work with nature. The alchemist provides nature with the proper materials and conditions. Then nature is all too happy to bring them to their fruition. As one sage wrote, quote, "Nature and art must assist each other to perfect the works. Art operates without, and nature within the glass." That's F. La Fontaine from Curious Aphorisms Concerning the Universal Salt of Nature in 1797. Hey, it's so good to see you, Heidi. Welcome in. Volatile and fixed solvents. We spoke of the initial division of the one into the volatile, or into a volatile, slash spiritual aspect, and a fixed slash material aspect. I'm reading that again. We spoke of the initiation, mother of pearls. We spoke of the initial division of the one into a volatile slash spiritual aspect and the fixed slash material aspect. The sulfur exhibits the fire and air qualities of the volatile aspect, while salt exhibits the water and earth qualities of the fixed. The mercury acts as both worlds and can be of a fixed or volatile nature. On the practical level, we use a mercury to extract or separate the essentials of our matter, and this can be with a fixed solvent or a volatile one. In general, a volatile solvent evaporates more rapidly than water. A fixed solvent evaporates less quickly than water. But in alchemy, it is their action upon our subject matter which shows their real difference. In herbal alchemy, we use the alcohol as our volatile solvent and produce what is called an unfixed tincture. If instead we extract our plant with vinegar, we will obtain a fixed tincture because we used a fixed solvent, vinegar. In winemaking, the plant dies and its spirit enters the watery medium as the alcohol. If we leave this open, the wine will go through a second death, as the wine becomes vinegar, which fixes the spirit. These two spirits, one fixed and one volatile, lie at the heart of practical alchemical work in the herbal realm and the mineral realm. Dude. Awesome. I love this book too. Medicinally, the volatile or unfixed elixirs are warming, energizing, and toning in their effects, while the fixed elixirs are cooling and contracting. Unfixed tinctures are said to be more effective in acute illnesses, while fixed tinctures are more useful for chronic diseases. Quote, "Remedies that are unfixed heal unfixed diseases, and the radically fixed, non-volatile ones expel fixed diseases, which do not move the excrements through evacuation, but through sweating, and by other means." End quote. Isaac Newton. That word I don't know how to say yet. Keynes, Mrs. 64. Keynes, maybe Keynes, Keynes, Mrs. 64. Water work. There are some experiments we can do which lie at a borderline between the vegetable and mineral worlds. One very interesting area concerns the use of salts as magnets for subtle forces, which then become available for our work in the laboratory. Another, which we will examine first, is the work upon water itself. Water is a strange creature. It is the only substance in our planet that exists in solid, liquid, and gaseous states at the same time under the normal range of temperatures and pressures we experience. As mentioned earlier, the sun radiates the vital energies throughout our solar system. This universal fire of life is one of the alchemist's secret fires. As this spiritual fire hits our atmosphere, it condenses in the air and is carried by it. As the air fills with moisture, the universal fire condenses even further and moves into the water. The water gathers and it starts to rain. This water, charged with the secret fire, a universal mercury, becomes determined for use by a particular kingdom when it hits the earth. If it falls on plants, it is determined to the vegetable kingdom. If touched or drunk by man or animal, it is determined to the animal kingdom, and if it strikes the earth, it is determined to the mineral kingdom. The golden chain of honor, or the golden chain of Homer, and those are in quotes, provides one of the clearest descriptions of this process. The text describes the universal fire generating, quote, an invisible and most subtle humidity, end quote, which consequently undergoes a gentle fermentation to generate the universal acid, quote, a most subtle, spiritual, incorporeal, niter spiritus mundi. Niter? I should learn how to say that, end quote. As the universal acid enters the atmosphere, it becomes more material and meets an alkaline, passive principle, whereupon it becomes fixed as native niter. Okay, we're looking it up. Stony Faith, welcome back in. Hey, Tanya, awesome. Happy Thursday, y'all. Oh, wait, yeah. I got my camera to, I'm just really thankful that I got my camera to work through my computer again. I just thought, for some reason, I was like, I think it's going to work tonight. And it did. So, how we say this word? Oops, I have the caps on.
Nader.
Nader, but niter? Nader? Niter. Another term for potassium nitrate. Niter. Like nitrate. Okay. Cool. Van shopping, fun. I mean, it can be. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm just going to take this other little thing down so that I don't keep looking into that camera instead. Okay, that was graceful. Okay. Nitrate. Niter. You kind of had an A sound in there. All right. Oh, yeah. I forgot I had those there. My cat's treats. Okay, that's better. All right, so. Niter. Passive. Okay, so as this universal acid enters the atmosphere, it becomes more material and meets an alkaline, passive principle, whereupon it becomes fixed as native niter. In modern practical alchemy, the element hydrogen is attributed to fire, nitrogen to air, oxygen to water, and carbon to the earth element. The other material elements of the respective periods in the periodic table share these qualities as well. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe, a true first matter, and is the first carrier of the fire, while nitrogen possesses the most oxidation states of any element and is said to coagulate matter. These two form the fire and air group, which the ancients called alkali, NH3, or ammonia, that's in parentheses, and later became the matrix of the ammonium, NH4, salts. Ammonium salts. The second group of atmospheric constituents is the acid niter group or fire/air/water group. And in parentheses, it says H2/N2/O2, from which niter originates. The acid niter, which is HNO3, is ammonia, to which the element of water has been added. The spirit of the world, the embodied alkali, is in the ammonium, in the ammonium radical, which is NH4. This is often called sal ammoniac, and is deposited as rain, snow, dew, and hail all over the earth. It is carried in the water as the salt of dew, or ammonium nitrate, which is NH4NO2 or NO3, at about 0.5 to 4 grams per ton of rain. The practical work mentioned in The Golden Chain of Homer provides a method of capturing the universal seed of nature, of determining this seed and growing it to its ultimate perfection using only rainwater. And then this is a picture from the Mudus Liber. Isn't that nice how it just zooms right in for me? It's so nice. Cool. Yum. Sugar water. Just okay. We begin by collecting rainwater. This is done in a special way. First of all, this operation is best performed during the spring, when the sun is in Aries, Taurus, or Gemini, and thunder showers are preferred since the lightning fixes more nitrogen in the air. And secondly, the rain should not touch metal, the earth, or plants or animals, including human contact. The operation is easily done by sticking out a piece of plastic sheeting and leading the runoff into a catch bottle or plastic bucket. It is good to filter all the water collected. Cover the container with a piece of cloth to keep dust out, but let the water breathe. Place it in a warm spot, 30 to 40 degrees Celsius, to ferment for at least a month, but longer is better. Some wait a year or even more. At the end of this time, you should see white to brownish solid like tufts of cotton floating in the water. This is the universal gur, or seed of nature. Place all of the water, including the gur, into a distillation apparatus and very gently sweat over the first quarter of its volume. Label this distillate as the fire and air of water. Raise the temperature and continue the distillation until most of the water has come over, but not to dryness. Label this distillate water of water. The residue which remains is placed into a dish and slowly allowed to dry in the sun, labeled as earth of water, and contains the universal gur. The text continues with instructions for moistening the earth with various proportions of the fire, air, and water fractions to generate mineral, vegetable, or animal life in the gur. It is said that the universal seed can be determined in order to grow any specified form to maturity. All of nature comes from seed. Alchemy has often been described as a celestial agriculture. I love that. This is so good. Oh my gosh. I love this. The sevenfold, or 4x3 distillation in chapter 7 on 7-7. Another common method of separating the elements of water is called a sevenfold distillation or 4x3 distillation. The fermented water is first distilled gently into 4 equal volumes. The first quarter to distill is labeled as fire of water. The second quarter is labeled as air of water. Next comes the water element, followed by earth. Again, the distillation is stopped before dryness, and the residue is dried, then labeled as the gur. Now take each collected quarter in turn and distill it into 3 parts, which come over in the order sulfur, mercury, and salt. For example, the fire fraction is placed into the sill and gently heated. The first third to distill over is the sulfur of fire and water. The next third is mercury of fire and water. The remaining third is labeled salt of fire and water. At the end of this process, you will have 12 fractions representing the body, soul, and spirit of each of the 4 elements. These 12 fractions can be combined in various proportions to moisten the gur, as in the previous operation. Each of these 12 fractions from water is said to possess unique medicinal properties on their own, and being 12 in number, they have been given astrological correspondences. These correspondences are properly derived from the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs of each element. Cardinal relates to the fiery sulfur, mutable to the meditating nature of mercury, and fixed. Mutable to the meditating nature of mercury, and fixed to the principle of salt. For example, our fire and water is distilled into the following thirds. Sulfur of fire and water is Aries, mercury of fire and water is Sagittarius, salt of fire and water is Leo. Why does it give us them all? It just gives us the fire signs. Okay, here's a little graph picture. Steady my arm. It is said that by the proper manipulation of these water experiments, one can even grow and multiply metallic gold, much as is done with any vegetable seed crop. Although it is not commonly known, the alchemists understood the mineral realm to have its own form of seed, just as the vegetable and animal worlds have their unique forms of seed. We'll come back to this idea later. The various works on water can be quite educational with regard to the operations of nature and lead to some surprising results. The work itself requires some labor and distilling because a fairly large volume of rain is needed at the beginning, but it is an inherently safe alchemical work. There are no toxic materials used and is available to anyone. The salts. A related line of operations capturing the universal fire into a corporeal form, is the work with salts. By the use of certain properties of selected salts, we can capture and concentrate this vital universal fire for our alchemical work of evolving our matter and ourselves. These salts form the basis for many of the secret fires mentioned in alchemical texts. These act as a catalyst in the operation to effect separation or conjunction of principles. Quote, "The secret of the ancients are in the salts. The magnetic salts should attract and capture the steel, the astral spirit, the universal seed, which, once concentrated, gives the germination power directed in accordance to the matrix in which it was incorporated." End quote. Jean Dubois. That's my instinct. Dubois. Pond Seminars, 1992. One second, I'm going to cough for a second here. Boop. There are a number of mineral and metallic salts which have a long association with the alchemical art. The 15th century alchemist Isaac Holland describes the hand of the philosophers as being an assembly of important salts in alchemical works. These salts include niter, potassium nitrate, sal ammoniac, which is ammonium chloride, vitriol, or a copper or iron sulfate, alum, which is potassium aluminum sulfate, and common salt, sodium chloride. Through their proper combinations and manipulations, anything can be made to yield its spiritualized essence. Holland describes them as keys to unlock matter. In his commentary to Basil Valentine's Triumphal Chariot of Antimony, Dr. Theodore Kirkring says, quote, salts are keys. They open the chest wherein the treasure lies, but you must be sure to take the true key. Otherwise, you may spoil the lock and not open the chest." End quote. Later on, when we discuss mineral and metallic works, we'll get more deeply involved with salts. For these beginning operations of capturing celestial fire, we will examine several common salts and how they are used in this process. In each case, it is the salt's ability to deliquesce in the air that is utilized. Deliquesce. I know. Okay, I'm just about at the end of this page. Quote, "Few persons know how to extract from the rays of the sun or of the moon. The means to make this water to descend from heaven is truly wonderful. It is in the stone which contains the central water, which is indeed one soul, SOLE, and the same thing with the celestial water. But the secret consists in the knowing how to make the stone a magnet to attract, embrace, and unite this astral quintessence to itself." Hermetical Triumph, 1723. Deliquesce. Let's look at how to say that. I'm going to read that quote again. Niter. Deliquesce. Deliquesce. Okay, cool. Deliquesce. Excellent. Of organic matter become liquid, typically during decomposition. Of a solid become liquid by absorbing moisture from the air. Deliquesce. Awesome. So the quote again. Quote, few persons know how to extract from the rays of the sun or of the moon. The means to make this water to descend from heaven is truly wonderful. It is in the stone which contains the central water, which is indeed one soul, and the same thing with the celestial water. But the secret consists in the knowing how to make the stone a magnet to attract, embrace, and unite this astral quintessence to itself. Hermetical Triumph, 1723. And then Modus Liber. There's a 12 by that moon. Interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh. Salts of tartar. We talked about this when we described the process for creating an ENS tincture. The salt of tartar is potassium carbonate derived from the calcination of wine tartar or plant ashes and provides an easily obtained starting material for many works. Spread the salts in a thin layer, 1/4 to 1/2 inch, in a glass baking dish. Set the dish of salt outside, protected from rain and dust, but exposed to the air. Do this in the late evening until 6 or 7 a.m. This is accomplished even better in the spring when the sun is in Aries, Taurus, or Gemini, because there is more of the universal fire with generative force present. The salt will deliquesce or become liquefied by absorbing the moisture of the air, which is loaded with the condensed universal fire, the secret fire. This liquid, called the oil of tartar per deliquium, was used in the ENS extraction. Remember, this liquid is quite caustic and will burn the skin and especially the eyes, so be careful with it. Another use of it is excuse me. Another use of it is to gently distill the liquid just to dryness. The clear, watery distillate has been called angel water and can be used in the recrystallization of the herbal salts. This liquid, loaded with the secret fire, becomes enmeshed with the crystalline matrix of the salts as they crystallize, thus revivifying them. This type of transference is subtle force. This type of transference of subtle force always takes place in the liquid state. Thus, the alchemists stressed solution as one of the important stages in the work. The volatile becomes fixed, and the fixed becomes volatile. The dried potassium carbonate can be recovered and reused. The liquid distillate is also useful in plant extractions. It is said to be determined to the vegetable world because of the salt's prevalence in plant ashes, and thus useful for all work in the herbal realm. Just as the potassium salts are said to carry the vegetable fire, sodium salts carry the fire in the animal world. These elements lie in the same period as hydrogen, the fire element, in the periodic table, but at more densified levels. We can use common salt in the above experiment to obtain water charged with animal fire. Salt, which is NaCl, will not deliquesce but can absorb a significant quantity of moisture. Use pure dried sea salt to which nothing has been added for this. The yield is much smaller, but just as powerful for work in the animal realm. Dew salt. Mr. Hugh, welcome in. Awesome, dude. Happy Thursday. Almost Friday, at least here. Another salt often worked with in the same way and mentioned earlier is called dew salt, or the heavenly dew salt. It can be derived from collected dew or rainwater, especially that collected during a thunder shower. But this is long and tedious. The salt itself is ammonium nitrate. The dew salt is highly deliquescent and said to be determined to the mineral realm especially, but it is of a universal nature. Sometimes You can find this salt in gardening stores as a fertilizer, but it is becoming harder to find because of its use in creating makeshift explosives. There really is a lot of fire in this salt. It can be prepared by mixing nitric acid and ammonium hydroxide until neutral, then crystallizing. Solve et coagula a few times by deliquescence to revivify. Be careful with this salt too. It is a powerful oxidizer and can ignite various types of fuel materials. Distillation of this salt, when it liquefies, is stopped well before the dry point. Crystals will form which can be reused. This distillate can be used in various operations in the mineral work in place of distilled water. This distillate is loaded with the mineral fire, which can be transferred to our subject in order to reanimate it. Copper salts also carry mineral fire, as copper is part of the group 1b elements in the periodic table, and thus related to the elements under hydrogen, all of which are carriers of the fire. Butter of antimony. The last salt we'll mention in this category is antimony trichloride, also called butter of antimony. Properly, this belongs to the mineral works, so we will only mention its use at this point. The preparation and use of this salt is much more difficult and dangerous than any of the salts previously discussed. When it is prepared, it has the color and texture of butter, hence its name. However, it is toxic and very corrosive, so it requires some skill and practice to work with safely. The butter of antimony has a ravenous appetite for the moisture in the air and will deliquesce even on a hot, sunny day. The water distilled from it is said to carry a truly universal fire, which can be set to operation or to operate in any of the three kingdoms. The archeus of water. Some operators combine the above methods to produce a reconstituted water called the archeus of water. It is an evolved form of water with surprising medicinal effects. The water obtained by deliquescence of a salt is loaded with fire and considered the male/sulfur/sun aspect, while the rain or snow waters are considered to represent the female/Mercury/lunar aspect of the celestial waters. The quantity of collected rainwater, the female, is impregnated with the distilled angel water, the male, then allowed to ferment for at least a month. After fermentation, the water is separated using the 4x3 distillation described above. Once the 12 fractions of water have been contained or obtained, the process of recombination can begin. Starting with the fire element, equal volumes of the sulfur, mercury, and salt fractions are combined, then allowed to circulate for several days. Let it cool, then set it aside for later use. Repeat this process on each of the remaining elements until you obtain the 4 elements in their reconstituted form. Now combine equal volumes from each of these elements and allow this to circulate for a week to a month at about 40 degrees Celsius. Notice we do not use the gur in this preparation. The resulting celestial water is called the archeus, or first being of water, and can be used as a solvent for extractions in any realm or as a healing water on its own. The archeus represents a universal mercury and can be determined for operation in any of the 3 realms by adjusting the relative proportions of the 4 elements during this preparation. The 4 elements of water should be present in each archeus, but not equally as we did above. If the earth element is predominant, the archeus will be determined to the metallic realm. If the elements of earth and water predominate, the archeus will be determined to the mineral realm. Water and air predominant will determine it to the vegetable realm, while fire and air will determine the animal realm. The mixtures are circulated as before. Then they are ready for use. The dried gur we collected is placed into a flask, then moistened, impregnated with the archeus. Close the flask, close the flask and digest at about 40 degrees Celsius for vegetable works, or up to about 90 degrees Celsius for metal works. Continue just moistening the gur as it dries out. If you prepare an archeus determined to the vegetable realm, you should see primitive plant life appear after some time. Keep it moistened. As soon as this plant appears to die, calcine the material, and add the ashes to fresh gur. Now begin the process of imbibing the gur with the archeus again. After some time, a new and more evolved plant life should appear. This whole operation can be repeated as often as desired in order to observe the progression of the plant life. If instead you prepared an archeus determined to the mineral realm, the moistened gur will at first become gritty, like sand, and pass through various colors. It is said that if the proportions are correct, you may even develop a few grains of gold or silver. These operations with water are generally long term. They require some labor at first and long times for digestion. Like trying to cultivate a rare orchid, success may require you to make several attempts. They do provide some interesting experience and insights to alchemical work wherein, quote, nature is assisted by art, end quote. That was chapter 7. Oh my God, it just said 3639 up there. I think I am going to read chapter 8. It's not very big. Let's do it to it. Chapter 8, Return to the Fire. Let us return to our discussion of fire, which began with common fire. Only now we are going to examine some of the more subtle aspects of fire presented in alchemical texts. Nature has its degrees of volatility and fixity. Alchemy really is all about the fire in its various aspects. Quote, fire is the primary agent, that of the whole art. It is the first of our 4 elements, end quote. Olympiodorus, circa 500 CE. Quote, and then this is different. This is by Dr. John Dee. Ooh. Quote, fire, notwithstanding the diversities of it in this sublunary kitchen of the elements, is but one thing from one root. This fire is at the root and about the root. I mean about the center of all things, both visible and invisible. It is in water, earth, and air. It is in minerals, herbs, and beasts. It is in men, stars, and angels. But originally, it is in God himself. For he is the fountain of heat and fire, and from him it is derived to the rest of the creatures in a certain stream of sunshine, end quote. Dr. John Dee, The Rosicrucian Secrets, copied by Peter Smart, M.A., London, 1712. Original in London Museum as Harleian MSS 6485. Hey, oh my gosh, Angelfish, good to see you. Happy Thursday. Welcome in. This is so fascinating. Really struggling with that page there. Okay. In its most subtle form, fire is the one only thing, the undivided light, from which all is derived. Fire is energy, and energy is matter. This most subtle fire is variously called celestial fire, heaven, universal fire, astral gold, divine will, and many more. It is described as the purest grade of fire, not burning, but gentle, invisible and known only by its operations. It is the source of all other forms of fire, and its visible representative for us is the sun. Remember, there is the sun behind the sun, or spiritual source, of which our visible star is condensed. This celestial fire is said to have two main aspects, the universal and the particular. The universal fire is diffused everywhere and excites movement in bodies. It warms and preserves the germ of all things. It develops the particular fire. The particular fire, also variously termed innate fire, central sun, or central fire, is implanted in each mixture with its germ. It acts little, except when excited. It does then what the sun, its father, does in the large universe. This is the divine spark hidden in all things, the reflection of celestial fire, called the quintessence. It is the most purified and fixed part of a matter, formed by the perfect balance of the four elements. This harmony between opposing forces of the elements brings forth a whole new and exalted state, the fifth element, or quintessence. Its action is digestive and maturing. It drives the transpiration and subtilization of the elements upward to regenerate fire, transpiration and subtilization. Hey, so something that transpires. Transpiration. Let's see. Oh. Transpiration.
Transpiration.
The exhalation of water vapor through the stomata, of a plant or leaf. Got it. Plants breathing. Plants lose more than 90% of their water through transpiration. Oh, it's just, it feels like that to me. Transpiration. Wow. The exhalation of water vapor. Transpiration. Okay, it's awesome. Uh-oh. Shoot. Transpiration. Where you at? Mother of pearls. Dude. Transpiration. Man, how could it be so? Particular fire, divine spark, quintessence. Transpiration. Subtilization. It drives the transpiration and subtilization. What? Subtilization. Oh, to think or act subtly. Transitive verb. To make subtle. Subtilization. Cool. Subtilization. I wonder if you say subtilization. I bet. Just like subtle. Subtilization. Cool. All right. Lemonade. Oh my gosh. That's so good. So, it drives the transpiration and subtilization of the elements upward to regenerate fire. Michael Sendivogius, in his works The New Chemical Light in 1608, called it the seed. Quote, "The seed is the elixir or quintessence of anything, its most perfect digestion and decoction, or again the balm of sulfur, which is the same as the radical moisture in metals." End quote. And then it says, quote, "The four elements, by their continual action, project a constant supply of seed to the center of the earth, where it is digested, and whence it proceeds again in generative motions." End quote. And then, quote, "This is the fountainhead of all things terrestrial." End quote. And then, quote, "The seed, which is a product of the four elements, is projected in all directions from the earth's center, and produces different things according to the quantity of different places, or quality of different places." End quote. Wow. As the celestial fire begins to coagulate or condense, it forms, quote, "an invisible, most subtle humidity," end quote, as the element air. This process of inspissation, this process of inspissation or thickening continues, and the air condenses into the water element. Then water condenses into the earth element. The fire trapped within, the central fire, now reflects and drives this process in reverse. The earth volatilizes and becomes thickened water. The water volatilizes and becomes vaporous. And the air becomes rarefied into a fire element where it is regenerated by the celestial fire, and the cycle begins anew. We are talking about occult elements here, not the air we breathe or water we drink. This perpetual circulation of fire is often called the fountain of nature. Quote, "Thus fire and air come down into waters and impregnate them. The waters dispose of their thickest part and give it to the earth. The earth thereby becomes overloaded or saturated with superfluidity of earth, and water is again volatilized and sublimed upward by the fire, inverted fire or central fire, into vapors, which ascension and descension God has implanted into the universal fire as the great and only agent of nature." And that's from the Golden Chain of Homer. All right, here's this picture. Incipation, the thickening, volatilization. Wherein the sun and moon operate every generation. Female sperm and menstruum, the moon. Male sperm, sun. Womb or matrix. This is so awesome. Quote, "The earth itself is a condensed or fixed celestial fire, and this fire is a volatilized earth." It's from the Golden Chain of Homer. This cycle of spiritual or celestial fire, in motion from the most sublime level, the Kabbalistic world of Atziluth, to its most dense and concentrated form in the physical, the Kabbalistic world of Asaya, then back again to the sublime, is the course of the active agent in nature. In the laboratory, the alchemist follows nature in her operations, volatilizing the earthy parts of the matter, which as the salts and coarse oils obtained in the plant work, as well as capturing or fixing the fire in its more ethereal forms, as in the vegetable mercury and volatile essential oils of the plant. The volatile and fixed materia are united and circulated to create a new and exalted balance of fire inherent in the original matter. Here's another picture. Ooh, here we go. Wow. Caduceus. Crown. Sun and moon. Looks like a bong. And like hobbit holes. Ooh, and fire in the earth. After the Hermetical triumph in 1723. Huh. Oh, and there's like crowns all up it. Dang, it's like the layers of earth. Oh, there's Taurus up there, and Aries, and Gemini. Wow, cool. Oh, right, I don't even have to worry about any zooming. It's so nice. Modern science will agree that in nature, energy never just disappears. It is in a constant state of transference from one form to another. Quote, you cannot move from one extreme to another extreme without the proper medium, end quote. And that's from the Golden Chain of Homer. In order to move from one elemental level to another, it is necessary to have the proper medium. To turn earth into fire, you must pass through water and air. One element is the conductor of the others adjacent, and that one element dissolves and subtilizes the other. Thus, one element is the other's magnet, solvent, volatilizing, condensing, coagulating, and fixing principles. Quote, therefore, if you want to unite heaven or fire with earth, or convert fire into earth, unite it first with its nearest volatile medium, and they will unite immediately. When that is done, give them water as a medium between air and earth, and they will also unite. Then add the earth, and thus you may unite fire with earth and fix it therein. And so vice versa, turn earth into water with water, then convert it into air, and the air into fire by means of air. And that's from the Golden Chain of Homer. This cycling of energy was often referred to as the rotation of the elements, and forms an important key to alchemical procedure, whereby the essence of a substance is extracted, purified, and raised to its most sublime state. With each rotation, the four elements of the matter come into greater balance and purity. When the perfect harmony is obtained, we have the quintessence of the matter. The path is not so much a circle, but a corkscrew, exalting the matter and drawing the elements to a center of balance, the pinnacle of the matter. Quote, when thou made the quadrangle, when thou made the quadrangle round, then is all the secret found. End quote. Ripley, 1480. Wow. And that was chapter 8. That was good. I think I'm probably going to call it there. Oh my God, this one's really short too. Okay, I'm going to read chapter 9 and then I'm going to call it. Okay. Chapter 9, Kabbalah and Alchemy. Along this same topic, we're going to introduce another concept at this juncture and talk about the Kabbalah. And introduce it to your attention. And introduce it to your attention is all we can hope to do for. Like astrology, it is a study in itself. In fact, alchemy, astrology, and Kabbalah form the three pillars of the Hermetic art. Quote, now, if you do not understand the use of the Kabbalists and the old astronomers, you were not born by God for the spagyric art, or chosen by nature for the work of Vulcan, or created to open your mouth concerning alchemical arts. ... End quote. Periclesis, Tincture of the Philosophers. Ah. Quote, the Kabbalah is a comprehensive approach and an integral study of all that which exists on the physical and metaphysical planes, the creation process, the ties between the created and the source of creation, the mechanisms of nature, the various worlds, and the various space-times. Jean Dubois, Pond Lecture, 1992. The word Kabbalah finds its root in the Hebrew word kibel, meaning to receive. This receiving refers to an oral tradition of esoteric or secret knowledge concerning the mysteries of nature. For the alchemist, Kabbalah provides a symbolic representation of the path which the One Only One followed in the creation of the universe, including man, and the process of returning to oneness along the same path. Kabbalah has always provided a means for individually approaching the spiritual dimension directly and without priestly intervention. In times past, it gave a religious and philosophical freedom viewed by many as bordering on heresy. The alchemists used the symbolic framework of Kabbalah as part of their secret language to both reveal and conceal certain works. The Tree of Life. The Kabbalah is presented symbolically in the form of the Tree of Life. The tree contains 10 centers or spheres called the Sephiroth, which are connected by 22 paths. Taken together, they are said to constitute the 32 paths of secret wisdom. The centers are arranged in 3 columns. The column on the left is called the Pillar of Severity and represents the feminine aspects of the One. This column contains 3 Sephira, named Bina, understanding, Gebera, severity, and Had, splendor. I apologize if I'm not saying those correctly. These are related to the planetary energies of Saturn, Mars, and Mercury, respectively. The column on the right is called the Pillar of Mercy and represents the masculine aspects of the One. Contained in this column are the 3 Sephira, Chakma, wisdom, Chest, Mercury, and Netzik, victory. I've looked up how to say those before. It did not stick. These relate to the band of the zodiac, Jupiter, and Venus. In the middle pillar, the middle pillar is called the Pillar of Equilibrium and represents the balance between the male and female pillars. It contains the 4 Sephira, Kether, the crown, Tippereth, beauty, and Yesod, foundation, and Malkuth, kingdom. This is the Tree of Life. Thank you. Thank you, Tanya. I love this camera. I actually just paid it off. I'm so thankful about that, too. It's cool. These are related to the undivided light, the sun, the moon, and the earth or physical world. One view of the Kabbalah requires 4 of these trees, one for each world of the universe, stacked vertically. So one tree's Malkuth gives rise to the next tree's Kether, in the same order as the 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth. For ease of presentation, the four trees are usually condensed into a single tree divided into the representatives of the four worlds. The four worlds. The Kabbalah distinguishes four major planes or worlds of existence, ranging from the most subtle spiritual realm to the most dense physical reality. Although it is easier to visualize and represent them as separate levels, they are actually superimposed on one another and form a continuum of the one. These four worlds are briefly summarized as follows. Atziluth represents the archetypal world, fire, pure divinity, superconsciousness, the spiritual world, the supernal triad. And this is consisting of the spheres of Kether, Chakma, and Binah. And then Braya represents the creative world, air, the archangelic, self-consciousness, the mental world, the spheres of Chesed, Jeberah, Tifereth, Netzach, oh no, and Hod, Netzik, and Hod. And then Yetzirah represents the formative world, water, the angelic, subconsciousness, the astral world, and the sphere of Yesod. Asaya represents the mineral world, earth, man, the body, the physical world, the sphere of Malkuth. And here's a visual representation of that. The Kabbalistic worldview has to do with energy and emanation. The universe issues from a single source into all we perceive, light, matter, even space and time. The condensation of this pure energy progressively provides the illusion of matter. The study of Kabbalah is a study of the source of energy, the areas or arena. Where is that? The areas or arena of transfer of this energy and the behavior of this energy, which is nature. What is below is a reflection of that which is above. Just as within the alchemical worldview, Kabbalah portrays creation occurring as increasingly dense levels of energy, from the most subtle, or fire element, to the most dense, or earth element. Within this ocean of increasing and decreasing density arise the Sephiroth, representing unique levels of consciousness, often referred to as the spheres of being. Each world is a reflection of a denser or more subtle degree than the one before or after it. Each Sephirah is a reflection of a sphere which precedes it, taking on its own unique characteristics, just as the plants absorb from the sun and radiate the excess, colored differently. Only these spheres of the middle pillar have an equilibrate. Will have an how do I say it? An equilibrating, maybe, have an equilibrating nature, I think, and the ability to harmonize or reflect in total all the energies of creation. Equilibrating. Only those spheres of the middle pillar have an equilibrating nature and the ability to harmonize or reflect in total all the energies of creation. Practical Kabbalah forms a system of operation based on the interconnections and relationships revealed by the Tree of Life. Just as the planets in astrology have numerous correspondences associated with them, their interconnections and relationships are shown in the structure of the tree. Through proper use of these correspondences, it is possible it is possible to gather and direct subtle energies for alchemical work at any level of being, progressively condensing celestial fire into physical manifestation. This is where the mental and spiritual exercises of the alchemist come to bear upon the subject and finally condense into physical reality. Boom. That was chapter 9. And I am, oh my gosh, look at that. Chapter 10's one page. Let's read chapter 10. Yum. Chapter 10. Introduction to Mineral and Metal Works. As we lead in to consideration of the work on minerals and metals, we must strongly caution you to know the theory first before attempting the praxis. The work with plants prepares us for the work with minerals, but plants are much more forgiving of mistakes and accidents. Without this developed skill and sense of precaution based on experience, certain types of mineral work are quite deadly. In the work with minerals and metals, we are dealing with materials in the crystalline state. They are the most dense forms of the one. The life force locked inside the crystal matrix is very pure and very powerful. We have only to look at our current technology to see the awesome power of crystalline materials, from the silicon chip to nuclear power. Herbal elixirs are powerful tools. You could spend a lifetime exploring their possibilities, but the most powerful alchemical medicines have always been sought for the mineral world. The basics of mineral alchemy are the same as outlined in the herbal work: separation and purification of the three essentials, followed by their reunion and revivification. The methods are similar but tend to be longer, more complex, and at higher temperatures. As with the herbal work, the processes used in the mineral realm work upon us in subtle ways. Because of the increased complexity of the work, you form a stronger link with your subject. Many operators have experienced the presence of sacred space or a field of force during some of the intense procedures of a mineral work. As one of the old masters put it, quote, "There are many paths that lead to the one effect," end quote. Likewise, we find a number of processes described for mineral works in general, as well as accomplishing the great work of confecting the philosopher's stone. These processes are often broken down into two general modes: the so-called dry way and the wet way. Some masters say there is no true dry way, as the liquid state is essential for the transference of celestial and vital forces in the matter. The basic difference in the two methods of operation can be described as follows. Via humida, or the wet way, provides separation of the three essentials by a process of fermentation and exaltation, or their extraction with the menstruum derived from a fermentation process and determined to the particular kingdom of the matter. Via sicca, or the dry way, provides separation of the essentials by processes of calcination, fusion, sublimation, amalgamation, and dry distillation of prepared materials. The transfer of subtle principles from medium to medium occurs during fusion. We begin our investigation into mineral works with practical methods used in the via humida, or wet way, to extract and purify the essentials down from the mineral realm. And that's page 100, and I really am ending it there. And so next time we'll go live with chapter 11 from this book. But tomorrow, I think tomorrow I'm going to narrate some of Dolores Cannon's book. And maybe a new one. I'm not sure. I don't think I'm going to go live with The Women Who Run with the Wolves until next week. just going to give it one more week to digest that stuff we read this week. And then end it out next Friday. Yeah. So thank you all for hanging out and taking some information in. I hope you've had wonderful Thursdays and going into some great Fridays and weekends. And, taking care of business. So do it like you feel it. Mwah. I appreciate you. I thank you. And I will see you very soon. Laters.